Greetings, Internet! Welcome to episode number 334 of the Comic Watchers Show. He's Chad, I'm Matt, and this is our show where we yak about comics. Our guest this week, we have creators Kat Colmia and Phil Falco here to talk to us about the EverAfterVerse. But first, and hello guys, before I do my butt first, welcome to the show, or welcome back to the show, I should say.
Thank you.
The Ringo Award nominations were announced today. Chad, did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I know that Kat and Phil are winners last year, so yeah, I mean, they just came out beginning of the month, and it's kind of like, you know, Eisner's, Ringo's, and well, I don't know where they are. You know, there's the Harveys too. So, like, where do you do if you get the hat trick? I guess they give you something maybe. but the thing I like about the Ringos, it's also the nominations are fan driven, so that makes it, you know, really nice, because you see, like, for like best writer, you know, you have Dennis Camp, James Tynan, Robert Van Dyke, Mark Waid, and then a good friend of mine, Joseph Schmalke. So, you know, it's like you get you know, great creators like Kat and Phil, who, you know, have a readership, and, you know, they, you know, get the recognition that they deserve. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to the Ringos. I've been to the last time I was at Baltimore, it was still the Harvey Awards, and so.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
having a little while ago.
Having a kid will do that, and them having the con the same weekend as it's around his birthday, then, you know, sometimes you have to choose. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know. Do you guys have any categories that kind of or nominees in any categories that kind of stood out for you, or do you want to make sure you get a shout out?
You know, we're always excited about the anthology category, just because that's a big one for us, and that's the one we won in. And the two I'm most excited for, we love a Wave Blue World. They're great people, and also we're happy to see Unseen Unheard. That was a really great comic anthology that came out on Kickstarter, so we're rooting for both of them. I don't know if you had any other ones, Phil, you wanted to share.
No. But those are the two that, you know, I mentioned, because I was able to do interviews with both of the creative teams for both of those. So, you know, it's always nice to see, you know, people like that get the recognition that they deserve. So.
Yeah,
we agree. We always think it's a win when indies, and especially, like, you know, crowdfunders, and, you know, make their way to award shows. So definitely pulling for them.
Agree.
Small fish, big pond, all that good stuff.
And again, that's why I like about the idea of the Ringos is, you know, you can have the major publishers and the well-known creators, but you also get, you know, a nice assortment of indie people. So, yeah. That was my little spiel about the Ringos. And
okay, Ringo Awards are September 26th at Baltimore Comic Con.
Yes, again, right around my son's birthday. So.
Always is.
Yeah, I keep telling Mark Nathan that he needs to, you know, reschedule it. But
he just
apparently I don't have that call.
Not yet.
Not yet. So, well,
okay, Kat and Phil, we're talking tonight about the EverAfterVerse, and specifically Witches of Oz. Tell us everything we need to know.
Yeah, I could start with our big event, then Phil, if you want to follow through to talk about some of, you know, how these titles connect. But right now we have our Fairy Tale Wars Kickstarter out right now. It's a crossover event where it's like a big 2 style event for Kickstarter. We are fulfilling it right after it's over, pretty much. That way we get to the next part and really try to do an event for Kickstarter and how that exactly works. So, Phil, why don't you tell us a little bit about our titles and what this actually means?
Yeah, the EverAfterVerse is our shared universe. It's all mature fairy tale books. So it started with which we launched back in 2023, which was a vampire Snow White, werewolf Belle, like action monster romance sort of book. And I don't remember if we specifically went into that book planning to do a shared universe, but I think we had
I don't
like maybe
think we were, at least originally.
I think we made that book originally because we were like, oh, we want to do something different and we want to like really hone in on things that like Kickstarter in particular, like are hot on Kickstarter, public domains, like vampires, like werewolves as well. And then that really blew up. And from there we were like, well, we got to do more of Beast and Snow, obviously. And then we were like, oh, like why don't we fill up this world that they're in with other characters as well? And then we spun out Nightmare in Wonderland, Witches of Oz, and then Witches of Oz got its own like tie-in spin-off, Ozma, the Trans Witch of Oz, and we also have the Little Mermaid and the Pirate Queen. That's everything so far, and it's been a lot of fun building those series up individually. Giving each of them their own distinct tone and style, and then also building up towards as Kat said, a big 2 style event where we can throw all of the series together and have those characters interact. And it's been our pretty singular focus for at least the last year. More than a year we've been planning it, but for the last year in particular, we've been like very meticulous in like making sure our schedules line up, that all the issue 4s of those first 3 series like land right at the right time. We fulfill all of them, and then we go into this part 1, and we have production ahead of schedule enough that, as Kat said, we can fulfill it right away and go right to the next part. So it's been ambitious, and it's taken over our whole lives, but it's been really worth it. We really love it.
It sounds ambitious. Like, I mean, you say you didn't plan on a shared universe at the start. Tell us how this happened organically.
I think I wish I remember when we were like, we're gonna do this event. I think it just kind of came to us probably in the issue 3s. I'm guessing all these had 4 issues with the miniseries, but I would say after the second one, I would say after we did Nightmare Wonderland, and then we're like, oh, we're gonna do a third. I was like, why wouldn't these all be in the same universe? I don't know if there was a magic moment, unless you remember one, Phil.
I think that we always knew. So we made Beast and Snow, and then we did Nightmare in Wonderland, and like I think we announced it as a shared universe. We knew they were in the same world. We knew that the kingdoms were at war between like the kingdoms that the 2 books took place in, but like there wasn't much overlap between them at first, very intentionally, because we didn't want to get swallowed up by a shared universe. We wanted the series to stand on their own, and we wanted to be able to get fans for those individual series before doing crazy crossover shenanigans. I think in terms of actually like sitting down and figuring out what a crossover event looks like, I think Kat's right. Like around issue 2 is probably where we're like, all right, let's figure out exactly what's happening. I think we were sowing the seeds of like, oh, these kingdoms are at war, and happen with that after we complete the initial arcs of those books. And then I think issue 2, around the end of that, we were like, all right, here's how we're going to do it. And at that point we had Witches of Oz either launched or like very well planned out. At that point we were like, how do we fold this in as well?
So what was it about the Oz Wonderland mythos that appealed to you and made you want to set your stories in this, aside from being fair game usage?
I think that with Oz in particular, I'll say like I've always been like a really big fan of The Wizard of Oz and Wicked. It's always been like one of my favorite fandoms and like one of my favorite movies and plays, and so that was definitely always a sandbox I wanted to play in. So, and Kat was also a fan, and like I it was not too hard to convince her after the success of the Beast and Snow. And for Nightmare in Wonderland, I think after the Beast and Snow success, we kind of sat down and we were like, all right, what we did with Beast and Snow is we sat down and we were like, what's hot
popular
right now?
Yeah.
And we were like,
I don't know how we got Sleeping Beauty. I think it's because we knew it was going to be a nightmare version of Wonderland, and that's how we got Sleeping Beauty, because Wonderland
was like popular enough on Kickstarter in particular. There have been a few Wonderland books, especially around the time that we were first coming up with Nightmare in Wonderland, and I think we thought it was cool, the idea of like, oh, Sleeping Beauty, like her sleeping curse doesn't just like knock her out and she's not a factor anymore, but it's like that sends her to Wonderland, and it's like a nightmare version. We were like, oh, that's cool. So and then, we got to play in those sandbox, but also put our own spin on it. It was very important to us, not just to kind of regurgitate what's been done before. We wanted to do like a healthy mix of homage to, and like, leaning on the public domain property itself that we are fans of, but also like doing our own crazy stuff, like, putting them in a casino that the Queen of Hearts runs, doing like reality TV shows and shenanigans.
So how did you guys go about developing your versions of these characters that everybody knows and loves?
I think for some of them, it really just became such a different character. I think like Snow White, like we used the foundation of like she's kind. It's like, well, what happens after someone kills you and you become a vampire? You're still a people pleaser, but you're like, you're a little bit more rougher around the edges. And I feel like Belle is like probably our most unrecognizable one. I feel like she's like just not anything like, the versions of Belle that we've seen in the books or what you've known of. Obviously, she's a werewolf too. That makes her a little different. I'll say the ones that are probably most similar is probably Glinda and the Wicked Witch to be more recognizable to the public domain versions.
Yeah, I think we really pulled from those. Like for all of them, I think you kind of start with the archetype that, as Kat said, like the kind princess or whatever, and then we had the benefit of for each series kind of like figuring out the tone of that series and what the characters meant to us, and then it always starts with series and character for us, like the individual series, before it becomes like universe hopping. So once we figured out who Snow and Belle were in Beast and Snow, then you have the bigger sandbox of like, okay, now who are they when we put them in this bigger world and they get to all interact with everyone. And it's a little jigsaw-y because like Kat and I are literally writing a scene like this week where we're like, oh yeah, there's like 10 different characters all here, let's make sure everybody's doing something. So
but also not make it feel like they have to say something, like make it purposeful.
But It's a little easier because we've actually built up the characters in other series, so it's not like we have to kind of like figure out who they are on the fly. So that's one benefit of the shared universe approach.
A little less on the exposition.
Exactly.
Healthy balance.
So tell us about the big crossover now that we're coming to.
Yeah, I mean, we set up a lot of story within the Beast and Snow universe to set this crossover up where the evil queen has won, and now it's like, all right, well, what do Snow White and Belle do if the evil queen is wanting to take over all these lands? And we get to see these characters team up to try to go up against the evil queen. There's other characters that might show up and cause chaos, but mostly it's what we want to do is like big action story piece. As also they're all really involved with each other, like Bianca, which is Sleeping Beauty's character, she knows Snow White. They've been their kingdoms have been at war, so to deal with something like that's a little more emotional, and then again more of the actiony side of stuff that we really wanted to do with the EverAfterVerse in general is just make it an actiony romp that also has a lot of cool character moments.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, we wanted it to be explosive, so like it's very heavy on the action and putting characters together like from differing series and getting to see how they play together and who hates each other, who likes each other, and we, as Kat said, the evil queen is kind of our like impetus. She's like the villainous character who they all have to kind of unite against, but we can't spoil where it goes from there, but we'll say that there's other challenges that they're going to have to face over the course of the 3-part crossover, plus like a tie-in event, a tie-in one shot as well. So it's like 4 parts, but 3 main parts.
And it's all going to end in like, is it January?
December.
No, it's December. Because I keep thinking, because we have a Christmas special too, but I think it's good. Let me actually see the actual.
It's going to run in November, the Christmas special. So like, we're doing them month to month so that we can like fulfill them right away. So we'll do part 1 and then we'll fulfill that while the tie-in is live, and you can support the tie-in to see like what some side characters are up to during the events of the crossover. And then we'll do part 2, and then we'll break it up with a little Christmas special that has nothing to do with the crossover, but your typical like Christmas romance novel. We've been wanting to do that for a couple of years now, so it's fun to be able to do that. And then we'll come back with part 3 in December.
But the point being, like, that's a pretty tight, like, for Kickstarter to have 4 parts up until like December. That's like something that we're really trying to do. That's different. And you know, we've obviously been doing this for a lot of years, so we have the things in place to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, it sounds like you guys have kind of the system down because, you know, once you guys, you know, you run a Kickstarter, the Kickstarter ends, and then you're, you know, moving on to the next one. And, you know, it's just.
We actually do 2 to 3 Kickstarters a month now. So it's like, yeah, we're doing multiple Kickstarters.
And a lot of stuff. Yeah, thank you. A lot of stuff that we've done over the last few months in particular have been like specifically geared towards planning this crossover. Like we knew we wanted to do blind bags for the crossover, for example. And we were like, oh, let's like test blind bags on another campaign so we can work out the kinks and make sure we can like do it like the best way we could possibly do it on the crossover. And then like, you know, we've been refining our fulfillment processes. You know, as I said before, there's been a lot of scheduling where we have to make sure that the dominoes kind of land where they belong, and you know, we're on track now to kind of like be caught up on everything when the crossover campaign, the first part ends, and you know, we already sent it to print, so it's been a lot of logistics, which has been the less fun part. We always say like we spend like 70% of our day doing like admin logistics stuff, and then 30% actually getting to write.
Speaking about your creative process, I know that you guys, you know, have worked together for a long time. I guess I want to say starting with Slice of Life, the webtoon thing that, you know, I think the Slice of Life Kickstarter just ended this evening. Am I?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, you are on the ball.
It's my job.
Good job, Chad.
But so how has your, you know, creative relationship, you know, evolved? Because I know, Kat, I know you have written comics, you know, and come from, you know, working with Kickstarter, and there's a question in there somewhere.
I think we found it.
No, yeah.
Brought us off, Kat.
Oh, I was just gonna say that we've been doing this for a long time. Like you said, we've been working together since like 2021, 22, maybe 20, because you started in 2020, Phil. So I want to say probably 2021 or 2. So we've been doing this for like 5 years together. And I was writing comics a bit before Phil, but then also Phil wrote his own comic before we ever teamed up. And now I couldn't imagine doing this without him, you know, and I'm sure vice versa, because it's a hard feat, and it's so interesting when, especially you're in comics, you meet people that only write by themselves, or they do a duo, and you're like, oh, it's just so interesting to see people's different dynamics. And for us, it's like we just work really seamlessly. And I always say this, but the most important thing is just communication. We're both very vocal and don't yes man each other, but also are very thoughtful when we're doing that. We're not trying to cause fights when you have a conflict. It's like, all right, this is what we have to get through that we disagree on. How do we meet in the middle? And I think that's gonna help your partnership in the long run, is how to compromise.
Mm-hmm. I have the benefit of Kat. I've always had Kat around in my comic career, so like when I first did my project in 2020, we were already friends, like just through life. We'd met like through friends of friends, and I was able to be like, hey, like how did you do this, or how did you do that? Because she had already done a few Kickstarters with another publisher at the time, so I've always had Kat, the benefit of Kat. And then you know, we started working together, and like she said, it's good to have a foundation in friendship, because you know, we always want to, you know, do what's best for the other person, and you know, we're always very communicative. So when you work together, there's bound to be disagreements, there's bound to be arguments, like it's just an inevitability. But you know, being able to work with someone who you can kind of like push through that with and get on the same page and like compromise is very invaluable.
And there should be arguments too. I think like if you're not having an argument, that's a problem as well, because then you're like probably yes manning someone. but it's how you kind of get through that. And I think for us, it's communication, learning how to communicate, because we do have different communication styles, and we're always learning how to communicate with each other, but also be like, we really try to take time for our friendship too. Like this week is a good example where we're like working a lot, and then we're like, well, let's stick in a movie. And Phil's husband's birthday is this weekend, so we're like, let's celebrate Julius's birthday and like have a good time. So it's like doing stuff that's also friend related.
I guess I know you guys travel together, to do shows and stuff too. So I know, Kat. I think the first time we chatted was when for the first volume of By Visibility. What is there a difference between doing an anthology like that and writing a single comic series / crossover event?
Yeah, I think it's just different hats. I think for the anthologies, it's more about editing, it's more about curation and like what you want in there, because there's a lot of people's voices where you're like, okay, what fits, what doesn't, don't repeat stories, and how do you talk to others and treat people right. For something that's a smaller team, it's me, Phil, and whoever artist, the letterer, who's working on it. It is more about us pushing the cart, right? Like an anthology, I don't have to come up with a story for the most part. I just have to come up with my stories. So for this, it's like you got to come up with a plot. You got to come up with who's writing it. And something that's great with me and Phil's relationship and our writing relationship is that we plot together. So we sit in a room and we live close to each other, so we could do that. And we'll figure out the plot, and then we'll split in half the script. So I get to write half, and we act each other. It's not like half and half. It's not like it's a 30-page issue and I write 1 through 15, he writes 15 through 30. We usually ask each other which scene we're most excited for, and that goes back to the give and take. It's like, oh, I'm really excited for this scene, and Phil could be like, well, I'm really excited for the scene, and meeting in the middle of like, well, which scene are you actually most excited for? And that's how we kind of write it out. So it's pretty different than anthologies in that regard.
We shockingly very rarely are fighting for a scene, which is pretty funny.
I think because we write a lot too, so it's more like, okay, I'll get the next one.
No, it's true. We are always working on something. So like if ever there's a scene that you want that I want, I'm always like, oh, I'll just get the next one. But I actually don't even remember the last time I was like, oh, I didn't get the scene that I really wanted. So.
Well, because we know each other very well too. So I think a lot of times when we're breaking it apart, I'm like, I know this is a Phil scene, so I really want to give it to him. Even if it's like, I'm interested in writing it. It's like, oh, Phil's really good at writing this type of scene. Like, I think a good example is I really love getting in people's heads. I really like the sad character driven stories sometimes, and Phil likes having fun, so he tends to take a lot of the fun or the more fun scenes, and I'll take like the real dramatic scene. And obviously we'll switch it up, of course, when we're writing, because sometimes we'll be like, I kind of want to have fun and do this. It's like, I want to take a more dramatic scene. But I'll say I think that helps us, is like we kind of like different things when it comes to writing sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes it leads to some pretty crazy stuff. I think Nightmare in Wonderland is one of my favorite examples where Kat's doesn't have as much of a foundation of like Alice in Wonderland fandom. Like she's seen, we both did our research to make the book, but it's not something she's ever been like super into. And by like issue 3, I had been writing most of like Wonderland stuff, and we were like, oh, Kat, why don't you do something with it? And she's like, oh, I don't know. I was like, just like it's Wonderland, just make it wacky and crazy. And she built like probably the best issue of the series, like with the scene she wrote for that one. So it's good to mix it up and get out of your comfort zone.
Sure. I remember when Phil sat me down, he's like, what would make you interested in Wonderland? I was like, I don't know, I just want to see a casino. And then we made a casino happen. He's like, I can make that work.
Like, I want to do something with reality TV. And we're like, okay. Her latest thing, this might even be a spoiler because it might make its way into the one of the books in the future. She's like, I want someone to have a cool car. And I'm like, you know what? We'll figure it out. It's not a modern set series, but we'll figure something out.
And I think we are going to figure something out.
Now, your work is very. I'm trying to. Have you received any push, because you're advocates for the LGBTQ community? Have you received pushback from people who say, don't do that to my character. Or,
Honestly,
you know,
not as much because I feel like, at least for us, knock on every wood that we ever have, is we don't really like push that much either. Like I think that we really like to tell our stories, and we're not really like adding people and being like, oh, I disagree with your opinion on things, and I think that helps us stay in a little bubble where we could just kind of do our thing and they could do their thing. But I think that kind of helps. But other than that, obviously, yeah, there's homophobia, there's stuff like that, but not like really with characters or anything. Just like with one-off people usually.
Yeah, we've I think it's inevitable that you'll see some like, unsavory characters coming who just kind of want to pick a fight, but we tend not to engage with them very much. And then
Exactly.
if you don't fight them,
sorry about doing that at New York last year.
we forgive you. That's why we came on. But usually, if you don't engage with that kind of like rhetoric, they kind of move on to their next target. And as far as characters are concerned, like Kat said, we haven't really had anyone who's like, "How dare you make Glinda gay?" Like, I think
most people are like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Yeah, I could see that." So, I'm sure at some point we'll have someone come up to us and be like, "How dare you make XYZ character queer?" Or, XYZ character trans.
It kind of rolls off though. Honestly, like the bigger hits are when and we wrote a whole newsletter about this, but when I did bi visibility, there's been like a lot of kind of like biphobia out there, especially within the queer community. And we had one of our and who's kind of did apologize for it after, but one of our backers like, "How dare you put a Little Mermaid story in this? I don't like bisexual people." I'm like, well, I don't know why you like this book then, because I'm bi and he's gay. There's no lesbians writing this book, but we're writing this book and you seem to enjoy it. So other than like, I think those are the more annoying ones where it's like people that are your like fans of other things and maybe are a little closed-minded, but like other people, I'm like, I don't really care. I just won't engage. I don't know if you feel the same way, Phil.
No, I agree. I think it's a little harder when it's like more nuanced, when it's like within the community. And I think like you said, it kind of rolls off, especially now. Like I think when we first, because our first books, like we're queer, like everything had a little bit of queerness in it, but when we first did like Slice of Life, like something that was like kind of centered around a queer relationship, we had a little bit of pushback. We had like a handful of backers be like, "Oh,
how could you?"
And I remember at the time like that bothered me.
Mhm.
It bothered you too, but not
No,
as
yeah,
much as it
no,
bothered
but
me.
yeah. But also, I was on YouTube for a really long time
Yeah,
too.
you
Before
had
that, that was
more
like your
of a
first
background.
pushback. Yeah.
And like I at this point now, I think it rolls off both of us because just like, oh, we've had so many positive interactions with the fans that they kind of cancel out the negatives.
So, if you would tell us a little bit about your artists and your relationship with them.
Yeah, I think we have a handful of artists that we've definitely worked with a lot, which we like our artist Val Perry from Slice of Life. We work with every week, and that's been our longest relationship. We doing that for about 4 or 5 years, and she sometimes asks us for scripts because we're a little behind, and we're always like neurotic about our stuff. And she's like, "Where's the next script?" And I'm like, "That's how you know you're a little behind on your writing." But I love that. I love that we have that relationship, and she's just like so good at getting stuff done and pushing good products. And honestly, knowing what we want, like now you don't even have to have that much description, like 'cause she just knows how to do her own thing. And then we found some other artists, if you want to piggyback on it, Phil, from like anthologies, and now we work with on a continuous basis.
Yeah. We found Val through Instagram. We were just looking up like fan art for like
She-Ra or something like
Supergirl,
Supergirl.
and then She-Ra and like Legend of Korra, and we found her. And then we worked similarly. We found Rafi DeSosa, who is our artist on The Little Mermaid and the Pirate Queen. Back in
But
the
we
day,
also worked with her on
yeah,
the crossover.
back in the day,
That's how
we found
her.
her for our first collaboration, a crossover between our horror and superhero books back in like 2021. And we found her because we were looking at like Supergirl fan art on Instagram, and we had a great time working with her on that one shot in 2021, and then came back to her in 2024, I think 2025, and we were like, "Oh, do you want to like do a book that's like
centered around everything that you draw on your Instagram?"
Everything you draw, like a graphic pirate mermaid, and she's like, "Yes, please." So that was we find sometimes on social media, but then like Kat said, through our anthologies, we always do open. Not always. We usually do open submissions where people can apply to our anthologies, and artists apply with their portfolios. And after we work with an artist we really like on a short for an anthology, it's not hard to make the jump to a longer form project. That's how we found Dorilla Schiachetto, who's our artist on The Beast in Snow, and who drew the first part of Fairy Tale Wars. And, very similar to Val there, where it's like now we've written so many issues, we've worked on so many issues with her that like she has like a shorthand. We have a shorthand with her. We don't really need to like spell everything out, and she like is very familiar with the characters in the universe, and that's always really great. And then similarly for Witches of Oz, I think we met Michaela Kakatori,
Yeah,
who's our Witches of
through
Oz artist.
Transphoria, I want to
I
say.
think Transphoria.
Yeah.
We worked with her on an anthology. I think we worked on 2 anthologies with her, and then we were like, oh, we should put her on Witches of Oz.
Everyone in the fairy tale universe who are artists actually we found through our anthologies, because Dory is on issue 1. Our Ozma tie-in is Alex, who we had with Aces and Arrows, and then part 2 is Michaela, who we just talked about, and then part 3 is going to be hopefully Perry, who we met through which anthology was that? Aces and Arrows as well.
Perry Pormond did her art for the Ozma, the Transwitch of Oz, and if
We
everything
really
lines
liked
up
it.
schedule-wise, she'll be doing part 3 of Fairy Tale Wars. And then Rena, I don't think we found through.
No, I think that was another, like, we looked through fan art
Instagram,
and we're like,
that Rena Mata is our artist on Nightmare in Wonderland. So everyone has a different story, but it's usually like, oh, we looked on Instagram until we found something we liked, or we met through an anthology application.
And now we're so like involved in comics, I don't think we do like the fan art as much, because like that's how we used to. And for any new creator, like I really recommend looking for fan art that is similar to the thing you're looking for. So like Slice of Life, the reason we did She-Ra and Supergirl is we knew we wanted to do something queer, and there's a lot of queer fan art within that those television shows. So now, like, we work on a lot of anthologies, or like we have a friend say, oh, look at this, or honestly we look through Kickstarters too. Like I do my top 10 Kickstarter lists every month. I'll be like, wait, that like is some good interior art, maybe we could work on an anthology story, and if that goes well, we could do something bigger. So yeah, that's our biggest recommendation.
Okay. So, Chad, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, so, at CAD, I know you used to be like something for Kickstarter, or like a advisor or something.
Yeah.
How, what is your view of how Kickstarter has, grown and changed from when you, began to where it is now?
I mean, when we began, I was getting like 100 backers on my books, and again, I was in college, like I'm glad I could fund these comics, but now there's obviously a bigger audience on Kickstarter. There's a lot bigger corporations doing stuff. I know people have their opinions about it, but me and Phil always land on it brings more people to the platform, so we need more people to the platform to bring more legitimacy to the platform. And yeah, working for Kickstarter, I was part of their first creator council. They had a second one, and then the third one, they're like, oh, let's just bring everyone back. So I'm still part of their creator council for now the second round. And yeah, it's fun to learn about what's coming up for Kickstarter and how we can help improve it. And I would say a lot of things that they're doing now is more features and more like, okay, how do we improve the site that will overall improve everything? And I think that's really great. It's fun. It's funny because one of my friends is like, oh, I kind of like want to make a documentary business. And I was like, you guys should do Kickstarter. There's like in the last 3 months, they've announced so many things to, help filmmakers and help people in the arts. And they're always doing new things to try to bring the little guy up a little bit. And I think that's so interesting, because I think people complain about that. It's like, no one's looking at my Kickstarter. And I'm just like, but they are doing it. Like, you just got to look at what they're giving, because they are giving stuff. You just got to find them. Because like, especially in filmmaking right now, they're have distribution with Tubi. They have $1 million grant that's going out right now. Go check that out.
So, I mean, like, and anything to kind of echo what you were saying there, Kat, it's important that we're getting more people not only to the table of this particular platform, but to comics in general. And in that regard, Kickstarter or Zoop or whatever, Indiegogo is giving a shot in the arm not only to more newer quote unquote small fish creators like yourselves, but also it's bringing folks to the table that I don't know would necessarily ever go to a comic store. or
Sure.
convention or anything like that. So I mean, has that been your experience so far?
Yeah, for sure. I think we've had a lot of people, especially like slice of life or webtoon,
Mhm.
where it's like, oh, didn't even know they were reading comics because they don't know that web comics are the same as comics. I don't know if you want to speak on like a comic shop and stuff like that, Phil.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest goals is always to get more people reading comics and more people reading indie comics and more people reading crowdfunded Kickstarter comics. So, Webtoon is one big pipeline we use, and we always try to push people from that platform to checking out other comics. And then, when we take on new projects, that's always a goal of ours. So we do our queer anthologies where the goal is like, oh, if you're trans and you like haven't really read comics, like you might want to check this out. There's definitely a story for you. If you're ace or asexual or aromantic, there might be a story for you in our Aces and Arrows. And then Catch Us Into the Comic Shop is it's a comic we recently did an anthology tie-in to a YouTube sitcom, and it's run by Cheyenne Oulu, and she's got a really big fan base for her show, and like she really wants to do a comic tie-in to it. So doing that, we were able to kind of get a good chunk of her YouTube audience to come and check out comics and Kickstarter comics potentially for the first time. So, and obviously she crowdfunded the first season of her show. So like, there's definitely a Kickstarter like overlap there, but it's always good to kind
They
of like,
weren't really comic related.
yeah, it was a show about comics, but like to do an actual comic, like it was good to kind of like, push people towards like, oh, you should check out Kickstarter comics. And, we've seen good bleed over as well. A lot of those backers ended up checking out our library of comics. So it's kind of like you're just trying to get people into the pool a little bit, and then hopefully they'll swim around a little bit and check out more of our stuff, but also more of the community at large, because that's what we want to do. We want to build up the community. We want to rise. We want rising tides to raise all the ships in the
Exactly.
Kickstarter and in comics in general.
So stepping back even more, what originally got you into comics, and how did that influence you into saying, "Hey, I could write my own"?
For me, I've been reading comics all my life. So my dad, when I was like 5, would like read action comics to me and like old Superman comics. And then in 2002, I was in 2nd grade. So we always could tell from the year what year we went to school. But Spider-Man came out, and I was just such a big fan of that movie. And I already knew my dad got comics off eBay. So I was like, can I go get Marvel comics on there? And then like 8th grade, I started going to the comic book store every week, and I haven't stopped. So I've been a Wednesday Warrior ever since, and and go to the same comic book store since then, which is always funny with the store owners. Like, I remember when you were this small, getting comics, and now look at you writing your own. And yeah, in college, I wrote a screenplay thinking I'd want to do more TV and movie stuff, and I wrote like a superhero book, and I was like, well, maybe I can make a comic out of this, and I did, and the rest is kind of history. And now this is both our full-time jobs. So
Was that The Dancer?
like follow my daughter first, and then The Dancer.
Well,
So
okay,
close.
okay.
Around the same time too, those two.
Yeah, around both
My
college.
story's pretty similar. I grew up like, a big fan of like Batman and Spider-Man because of like the animated series that were around when we were kids. And then, I would watch all the movies, and I got into reading comics in middle school. I remember I would go to like the library right next door to my middle school, and I would read like all the graphic novels, and like I was like, oh man, like these can be pretty dark, and like I would like Batman would be my entry point, but then from there I'd be like, oh, I liked I like this Alan Moore story. What else is he writing? I'd read like Swamp Thing, and then you kind of like just branch out to other comics. And I've always been a big horror fan as well, so I always really like venturing more into the horror comic space. And I started reading comics. Became a Wednesday Warrior in like New 52 time, so I was a little late to the party and actually entering the Wednesday Warrior time. But I was reading a lot of back issues and graphic novels online, and like wherever I could find them before that. And then in college, I'd taken a lot of writing courses. I was intending to go get a minor in creative writing, but there was like a complexity that didn't allow me. But I took all the courses for it, and I was like, oh, I want to write. At the time, I was like, I want to write a novel. And then, I was like, oh, like this horror story I have swimming around in my head, maybe it'd be more cool to do as a comic and a more visual medium. And I already like comics, and I knew Kat at that point was, out there making comics and succeeding, and I was like, oh, like let me give it a shot as well. And she gave me the benefit of her experience, and I launched my first comic in March of 2020, right when the world shut down. And
Perfect timing.
it ended up being pretty good because it
All the
was
comic book
literally the
stores
week.
closed.
Exactly, it was the week that comic stores that Diamond stopped distributing. So there were a lot of people who were looking for comics, and that first Kickstarter I did, it got a respectable 100 something back, 120, 130 backers, and from there it's just been going down the journey. And Kat and I started working together not too long after that. I think I did 3 issues of Haunting, and then we were like, oh, let's write something together so that we can a crossover between our books. That way we have something we could sell on the table if we do a con together, that we both can profit from. And after that, we were like, oh, this worked out really easily. Let's keep working together, and we haven't stopped.
It makes writing easier when you have a second person. Got someone to blame when it turns out bad. No, that's a joke I remember. When I was a younger writer, I would always be like, "Oh, is this any good? How do I know?" And then I think when you do have 2 people, you do have someone to bounce off of and kind of figure out if it works or not, which is why one of the reasons we haven't really we don't work with the editor as much, because usually we edit each other when it's a little bit easier with 2 people. Obviously we've worked with editors in work for hire ways, but for our own books it's oh well, we kind of already, it's easier when you have 2 people. So I can't imagine doing it yourself in that regard, and I think that's why if you're doing it by yourself, I think you have to have someone else involved in the creative process in some way.
So what's the biggest lesson, running a Kickstarter that, you've both kind of learned over the years with all the campaigns that you've done?
Fulfill and be communicative. I feel like that's just the theme we keep saying, but if there is an issue within the production, even if it's a month late, you gotta let people know. And now I don't know, again, we do a lot of campaigns, so we kind of see it. Kickstarter kind of pushes backers too to kind of tell the creator after a month that they haven't done an update, they should do an update. So you'll be like, okay, a backer has told you that they want an update, so once a month they're kind of pushing you to do an update, and you probably should. Why not? Unless it's same old. I think you should try to update everyone once a month and your progress of where things are at.
Yeah, all those very important. I think just read your page as if you don't know what you're selling. I think a lot of people live with their idea for so long that they almost forget how to present it and to pitch it in a way that's sellable. So, try to read it, try to present it, and then read your page from the perspective of someone who knows nothing about it. And even better, show it to people who know nothing about it, and make sure that it's being sold in the most compelling way, that things are clear, that you're not just info dumping on everybody. Because at the end of the day, Kickstarter is a platform where you're trying to sell something to someone, you're trying to make it appealing, so make it as appealing as you can. And
in the front, don't tell us about how as a child, there's 5 months, a 5-paragraph thing about you when you're not Scott Snyder or whatever. People want to know about the story. I unless it's really involved in the story, you could tell us about you 10 paragraphs down. Tell us about the book.
And use images. A lot of people will do a wall of text, but Kickstarter in particular is not really primed for that. It's a very visual platform. So, have a paragraph, try to have an image, have a paragraph, have an image. And I think if you're doing multiple Kickstarters, so if you're doing an issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, switch up how you pitch it each time. Each new issue is an opportunity to show it a different way. We've seen people use the same exact title, subheader, description. In some cases, even the same thumbnail image, which you shouldn't do. Each new issue, you hopefully will have a decent turnover of your readership from the last issue, but also it's a chance to get new readers. And if you use slightly different keywords or pitch it a slightly different way, you could hit a whole new audience. The example we always use is that my horror book Haunting, for 5 issues, I would vary the pitch a little bit, but it was mostly the same. And then in issue 6, I put like zombies at the forefront of like the thumbnail image and in the title. And I got a whole bunch of new backers who are like, I love zombies specifically. It's like, oh, zombies have always been in the book.
Zombie
I just
stuff.
never like highlighted it. So, little things that you don't think about can have a big impact.
So, what are you in this for this particular campaign, which is already funding? So, I guess you're working on stretch goals. What are you, offering for potential supporters?
I think the thing, and we discussed it a little earlier, the thing we're really excited about is blind bags. Obviously the direct market's doing it like crazy, and I kind of have a fun time buying them and be like, oh, did I get something interesting? So we're doing our own version of that. We have really cool covers. Dan Mendoza, who's done Zombie Tramp, did a cover for us. Tula Latoy, who won Eisner's and every award you could ever imagine. She did cover for us, and we really like the variants that we have. And then, everything else is what we've been selling. We have enamel pins, we have bookmarks, we got all the fun jazz, stickers. And yeah, I mean, those are kind of the exciting things.
Yeah, we teased this before, we said this before, but we've been kind of priming everything over, working out the kinks in previous Kickstarters. So we sold the blind bags, and now we're bringing them back new and improved here. We've been selling trading cards
cool.
Forever, yeah.
of the EverAfterVerse. They're just low cost and fun, and people like to collect them.
Well, in this version, we have full art cards. I forgot about that. So we've been doing like 1/6 ratio, you get a hollow card. And I'm like, oh, but isn't it interesting when you get a pack of cards, you get the super rare card. So we're doing a full art card where you pretty much maybe 2 people will get it out of as many people are getting these cards. So it's like, oh, you feel like extra special if you get this card. So we added that as well. And we actually is a 1/200 ratio. So we're like, I guess as an add-on, we'll put 1/200. Hopefully we'll see if anyone gets it. We're like, I guess it's nice because you'll get the money, but also 1/200 cards. That's gonna be a lot. Someone did back that add-on for 200 cards. So to get the card.
That'll be fun to pull together when it's time to pack next month. But no, the comic is obviously the big product and the reason to be there. But we try to also give extras that people can get if you want to supplement your purchase, and it just makes the IP seem more lived in when it has these little tie-in materials. So.
And also it's cost effective. We're not making statues
T-shirts.
great things that are cost effective that you want to get. We have particular covers, stuff like that are useful to the audience we have.
Now you guys also have Deathline comics, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So is there going to be a Deathline Lifeline
crossover?
Line crossover.
You never know. I'll say it depends where those titles go, but the big point of why we made Deathline was we wanted to distinguish to our fans what we're writing and what other people are writing, because we're doing some creator-owned stuff for people like Zoe Tunnel and David Booher are doing titles, and that's the comic shop title we mentioned is something that we didn't write, so we just wanted a line where it's we are curating this and we maybe even edited this, but we're not writing them. So that's pretty much what Deathline was about. It's just things that we're not writing.
Is there a challenge in curating or an unforeseen challenge in curating this new other material?
I'll say the biggest challenge is always, contracts and stuff like that, making sure every party gets what they want. And I'm very happy that we've been able to do that for the people that have been involved, and also finding the project that fits our audience the most, what will help grow our audience, but also is different enough.
Yeah, we when we first started working on Deathline, we had Michelle Abounder as our I don't remember what her title was, editor, I guess, for Deathline. And she did a lot of that startup work. We were involved, obviously, but she really helped us with procurement of titles for Deathline and actually building them up. And she's since moved on to IDW. We still work with her, but she still works with Deathline, but she's taken more of a step back to work on that. But it helped having another voice on there to kind of shape the imprint and the voice of it. And it's been fun. We're coming to Not yet. We just did our issue 2 Kickstarters, but like in the next like 6 to 8 months, we'll be coming to like the end of those 4 issue runs of
Now we got
the
to think
first
what we're
run.
going to do next.
Yeah, so sitting down and being like, what's next for Deathline, and we also have Powerline that we made for the comic shop. Then like that's more like Deathline is like Michelle always described it as like mall goth books. So it's like we have vampire and demon books in there right now. So I'm curious what other titles might fit in Deathline or Powerline in the future. So let's see.
So, who, writers, whatever, inspire you, and do you kind of, or how do you go about getting inspiration for, the stuff that you write?
I'm a huge Brian K. Vaughan fan. Like I love his style of writing. From a writing perspective, that's kind of what I like is just like kind of larger than life stories that feel really, really character driven and always come back to character. And you know, he for a guy, he writes queer woman very well. Like that's why everyone's like sometimes try to gatekeep him. Like, but how about Brian K. Vaughan? He writes queer women very well. Yeah, I love him. His writing, Terry Moore, and he's doing a lot with Kickstarter now. We're so thankful we got to write. We got to work with him on a few covers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's done a few covers for us, and we've become friends over the years. So we're happy to be able to work with him. And we actually have our next issue of Fairy Tale Wars. We're gonna have a Terry Moore cover that we're really excited
It'll be our
about.
third one, I believe.
Yeah, our third Terry Moore cover, and and then like also people that have been peers that have we just talked to like trade notes. Like Pat Chan has been a friend of mine since like 15 years, and it's so cool that we're kind of going down a very similar path, so we just get to help each other and like go through the trenches with each other. But how about you, Phil? Do you have anyone else in mind?
Yeah, I mean, building off of what you just
Mm.
said, like it is cool that we're in an industry where we can work with people who we're like genuine fans of. David Boer, we just talked about, who we work on with Malik Damned for Deathline, but before we even met him, Kat recommended Specs to me, and like I loved it, and we would geek out about Specs together, and then it was like, oh yeah, like let's like that. Michelle was like, oh, David Boer wants to do something, like let's have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
I also love Brian K. Vaughan. We haven't had a chance to talk to him, but you never know.
That might be a little bit farther out.
That would be. We'll have our people call his people in a few years. Yeah, he's a big inspiration. I mentioned earlier I really love Alan Moore's work, and it really shaped the way that I view horror comics in particular. So, it's cool that comics are so small that like you can kind of like swim in the same pool as like people who really inspire you.
Well, I mean, Gail Simone was a great example. We did hairology, and I messaged her. I was like, "Oh, do you want to do a poll quote? Because I know you like worked as a hairdresser." It's like, "Well, I'm going to write a forward for you," and that was really cool.
Awesome.
And then like other people that you just know as kind of legends, and you just become friends with, like Brian Polito. We just saw Comic Con. It's cool that we're like kind of doing similar things, and he's been doing it for a much longer time and a bigger scale. But it's cool that we get to like just talk to each other and like get to know each other and know of each other's work.
Yeah. Well, and you find out that these people they just put their pants on one leg at a time like you did, right? I mean, they're just folks.
You wear pants.
I do wear pants.
Well, none of us are standing up right now, so. Not true. Everyone's people, and you forget that kind of when you're being a fan, but not when you're being a peer.
So, are you guys reading anything currently that is deserves a shout out?
One thing we actually do on our newsletter, which we really love doing, is recommend comics. And what we try doing is I read a lot of the big two, so I'll recommend like a big two book, and I'll recommend an indie book. And then Phil, he reads a lot of the Kickstarter books and a lot of webtoons, so he'll recommend a Kickstarter webtoon. But I think not that they need help, but I think DC's been really killing it. They've got some great titles out there. I've been gushing about Deathstroke and Firestorm in particular to Phil a lot. I've been really enjoying that. From Marvel, I love my little one shot I got of Runaways this week. I always love Rainbow's Runaways. I think Infernal Hulk has been pretty solid. Punisher. Black Cat with G. Willow Wilson. Indies that I've been really enjoying. And actually, Doug Wagner and David Hilliard have a Kickstarter right now, but anything that they write, I'm always really enjoying from the indies. They just did Narco, and I thought that was a great series. Trying to think of other indies I want to recommend. I have, what's funny? I do a pick of the week. I have a whole list of my pick of the weeks, and it goes back to like 2012, and they're all saved in my laptop, so I could just look.
Oh, yeah.
Just Brutal is from Ignition. That like a cool like family drama I'm enjoying. Feral is really good if you like Tony Fleeks.
On my list.
Minor Arcana from Jeff Lemire, Boom Studios. It's about this girl who's like a medium because her mom was one. She's like, I don't believe in this, and then she like goes into these different worlds, and it's like a really good small town series that's very continuous. I think it's up to like issue 18. You don't get to see that as often anymore, so I really like that. So, and yes, Feral should be on your list, Phil. I'm not a cat person. I'm like, it's a zombie cat book.
It's very up my alley.
Yeah,
I'm
it's so
saving
up
it
his
for a
alley.
rainy day as it's stormy outside.
As it's stormy. But those are my. How about you, Phil?
I definitely think DC's been killing it. I've been liking Absolute Green Arrow, which Kat got me onto, and then Absolute Batman I'm behind on, but I've been enjoying reading it in trade. And then no, I think you kind of covered it in the indies department. Kat's always very meticulous, as you heard from her sheet. And then like she said, our newsletter every week we recommend 4 comics, so it's a good place to kind of see recommendations across all different types of comics. And we think it's important to consume comics in every form that they come out. So we try to do Kickstarter, Webtoon, Big Two, and indie book each month.
And in particular, you've been really like at the forefront of the Webtoon stuff. You really are able to scour and see what's going on Webtoon, which is
it's
great.
definitely that it's Webtoon. A lot of respect for it as a platform. We post on Webtoon, but there's not a lot of people like talking. Like there's obviously comic journalism is not what it used to be, but like there's more discourse and resources for comics. But web comics, it's like really a shot in the dark to find quality web comics. So it's a fun challenge every 2 weeks to kind of go through the platform and be like, what am I going to talk about this week? So, so it's always enjoyable.
Speaking of Absolute Batman, I hear that's going to make that Scott Snyder guy a big name or something.
So I heard, but I don't believe it.
Big things in his future.
Maybe even a TV show.
Maybe. Never know. So we're coming up on our hour. So if you'd like, would you go ahead and give one final pitch for the books and the Kickstarters, and let us know where we can find you guys on social media.
Yeah, if you like Big Two style storytelling, I really recommend Fairy Tale Wars. And if you're frustrated with Big Two style storytelling, you might want to check it out too, because it might be very refreshing to you. And we're super excited about it. And it's very funded. You're gonna get the book. You're gonna get the book next month. Like, how could you not, right? And at Comic Uno for me, that's where you can find me everywhere.
Awesome.
I'm at Phil Falco Writes on everything. And then for Lifeline Comics, you can find stuff on our website, lifelinecomics.com. All of our back issues are up there. And you can find like links to our current Kickstarters. And then the Lifeline Comics Substack is where you can find updates on all of our new stuff. We post every 2 weeks. And we always do like a big article every 2 weeks, along with our announcements and our comic recommendations. And we'll review movies and TV shows. We have a good time. So just check it out.
I will say that I won't have to tell you guys that we will be following your campaign over on our crowdfunding roundups.
I love it. Thank you. As you're always so great with. We really appreciate that.
Labor of love for Chad every week. So,
I love getting the notification. Yeah, we always be on social. It's true though, because you don't get it. Like you gotta spread the love. And
there's not enough coverage of Kickstarter comics in general, but Kickstarter especially. So it's always refreshing to see your roundups.
So thank you.
Speaking of which,
plug time.
I still got to finish DC Solicits. Oh.
Oh yeah, I did see the solicits came out today, or maybe it was yesterday. So I know Marvel might have came. I think Marvel came out today. So
Marvel is out today. DC drops tomorrow. So.
Good luck.
But at least they give you a few days to get them together.
Yeah, right.
Well, Chad, who are we chatting with on our next episode?
I'm sure we're chatting with someone. If not, I'm sure I will be scheduling somebody.
All right. Well, Kat Colmia and Phil Falco, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Love the books. Chad sent me like all kinds of links to cool comics that you guys have done and are doing, and it's really the EverAfterVerse is really cool. And like Kat said, if you're tired of the big two or you love the big two, this is perhaps comics for you that you should check out. So do it. Support them. Support up-and-coming creators, and get out there and do something good in the world. Until next time, you can catch Chad and I over at comic-watch.com, your home for fandom news and pro reviews. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.